Hey everybody, welcome into To The Point. Hope we all had a great weekend. We're here live Monday night. Normally do the Sunday night live show, but because football, the playoff seedings were not set, I wanted to wait so that we could get all of it done tonight. So we get into all of it, get into the details of what's been happening over the last, couple days here. And I sound better than I did yesterday too, and I still don't sound perfect, so I apologize for that. But the sinuses are getting better. And also, you get a cold, you don't got to take an Advil or a cold and send of that crap. I haven't taken a pill. You just fight through it. Human body's supposed to fight through stuff. That's what I hear anyway. That's what I've done. Maybe I would have got better quicker, possibly, but I didn't, and I'm on the mend. So, screw pills. Opioids can read between the lines. So, so we're going to talk some NFL, get into all of it. We're going to preview the national championship, which is tonight in Houston, Texas, Michigan, Washington, for all the marbles. We'll get into Jim Harbaugh's NFL outlook after this game and where he could potentially go. Got a number of things I want to get into across sports, but I want to start today not with football, which normally is a Monday staple or a Sunday night staple. I'm starting with hockey with the not so breaking news, as we talked about it last week, that Bill, aka William Nylander, signed an 8-year, $92 million contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs this afternoon. 67 million of the 92 is in bonus money. He will receive 27 million in the first 2 years of the contract. And along with this big extension, Nylander has a full no move and a full no trade clause for the entirety of the contract. Interesting. First of all, I don't think the number's unreasonable because, as I pointed out many times, the number is your comparable to the player that you feel you're on the same level as. Bill Nylander clearly thinks he's in the David Pastrnak realm of player, and he compares himself to David Pastrnak and says, I should make more than him. I should be in the same realm as him. Okay, Timo Meier makes $8.8 million. Matthew Tkachuk, who's a better player, makes $9.5 million. That is irrelevant because they signed the contracts before me, and like anything in the world, we keep this company, the NHL, is making money, and salaries are going to go up. You don't have to agree with it. That's just the way it works. There is no other sport but hockey where players are asked to take less, where players are criticized for making the most money that they can. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't criticize the players, yes, you do, because your favorite team will sign a player and you say that's too much. He needs to take less. He needs to sacrifice. There is no other sport where that happens. There's no other profession, I could argue, where that happens. When you go into a job and you are offered a promotion, you're not going to say, oh, give me $1 less so everybody can make more. That never happens. And if it does, let me know because I wouldn't do it. I'm taking the money. There's no entrepreneur who's going to make less money. If he can make 1.5 million a year and make 1 million, he's not going to choose to make 1 million and give the rest to charity. It's not going to happen. It's idiocy. But the NHL works this way, and really, it shouldn't. I am for the salary cap because I don't like just reckless spending. We're going to talk baseball tomorrow with the Dodgers and what they've done this offseason. It's not that compelling when you feel one team is head and shoulders above the rest. You want parity. You want great teams battling one another on level playing field. That's what makes for great theater to me. There's a hard salary cap in the NFL. There's a hard salary cap in the NBA. You can only sign a certain amount of players to max contracts. So this isn't a foreign thing where, oh, he's going to take less. Ask him to. It doesn't work that way in the other sports. You work your way around the salary cap. And I think what the primary feeling will be today is that William Nylander took too much money. He's not an $11.5 million player. Well, he's fourth in league scoring. He has only 3 games this season where he doesn't have a point. He's on pace to set career highs. He's on pace to do something this year Mitch Marner's never done. Get 100 points in a season. There's a fun factoid for you, but you never heard that one. His teammate, Bill Nylander, is a very polarizing player. He was the whipping boy. They needed somebody. It wasn't Mitch because he's from Toronto. It wasn't Matthews because he's the star player. Couldn't have been Morgan Riley. Don't know why it couldn't have been him, but it wasn't him. It was Bill Nylander. And yet through all those trials and tribulations, because Jake Gardner was out of town, so the Leafs fans on Twitter couldn't go on there and say, go kill yourself. They needed to find somebody else, and that was Bill Nylander. But yet, through all that bullshit that he went through, and through all the, oh, you make too much money, you're not that good a player, you have no heart, yada, 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 he's battled through. He's been their best playoff player the last 3 years. And he looked around saying, I make $6 million. Well, Austin makes 13, Mitch makes 11. Why should I make 9.5? I'm not a $9.5 million player. I have more points this season than Marner and Matthews. Interesting. Some might argue that Nylander drives the line with Matthews on it. Not saying I do. I'm just saying some people might. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Who cares? I do, by the way. Is Nylander better than David Pastrnak? No. Is he better than Matthew Tkachuk? No, not in my opinion. Is he better than Timo Meier? Sure. Is he better than the bald bastard in New York, Artemi Panarin? Sure. Maybe. I don't know. I'd rather have Bill Nylander come playoff time. So you could say he's worse than all those 3 players, and I wouldn't fight you on the argument. You can make the argument that Nylander's more of a Alex DeBrincat type player, which I wouldn't fight you on either. But again, it's about the timing of your free agency and who you are dealing with. The Toronto Maple Leafs are one thing, and that we know very well over the last number of years. They are the easiest team to negotiate with in the National Hockey League because they will do whatever the player wants. First, it was Kyle Dubas. He's the new GM. He's weak. He's player-friendly. Now he's in Pittsburgh. And Brad Treliving has set the exact same standard following Dubas's departure. It's the same rhetoric. It's the same feeling. He's going to do what the players want, and that's that. You want $11.5 million? Sure. No problem. We can do that for you. Matthews, you want a 5-year deal instead of an 8-year deal? Sure. Mitch, you want to hold out? Okay, no problem. We got no problem with that. And you're going to sign for 6 instead of 8? Okay. Here's the win in the negotiation for Toronto, which isn't really even a positive, but let's take a positive spin on this Monday. Some people say I'm a little negative about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I disagree. I think I'm the most honest you get, and you're used to listening to shows like Overdrive and, Real Kipper, where they're fans of the team. I'm just going to give you the straight dope. I'm going to give you the facts. Facts of life. That's what I do. The positive in this deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs is you get William Nylander for 8 years. So, if he is productive for those 8 years, you are getting a great player for 8 years. That can only be labeled as one thing, a positive. Would I have signed Bill Nylander for 8 years? I would not. I think 5 is the right number for a player like him. He's not a franchise player. He's not a top 5 player in the world, and if you really boil it down, he might be the third best player on his own team. And he's making $11.5 million and he has an 8-year contract with a full no move and a full no trade. Those last two things, the full no move, full no trade, are fucking crazy. They give those out like they're candy on goddamn Halloween to players. You take a no move, you take a no trade, Oprah. You give them out. Here, take it. And that's what gets these general managers in trouble when you're sick of a player or he's sick of you and you want to go, but he can give you a list where he will only go to one place. That's not a problem in the immediate, but I could see it being a problem in the future because it's always an issue. It was an issue with Patrick Kane. It was an issue with Jonathan Cates. It just happens, right? The 8 years is never 8 years. Just never seems to be, unless you're Sidney Crosby. And I wish he wasn't in Pittsburgh right now because he might have a chance of winning. Might have a chance. But for Toronto, you get a great player. You keep him. But in order to maximize this, in order to truly fulfill this, you need to find a way to win really soon. And I'm thinking this year or next year, because this team's going to have decisions to make and it's going to become really difficult. This number on the contract is not crazy. It's not a drastic overpayment, but it might be a slight overpayment for right now. As the cap progresses, it gets crazier and crazier. And then you go, as it keeps growing, okay, it's not so bad, $11.5 million, as more and more players make 14, 15, 16 million. But for the immediate future, you're going to have Matthews making 13.5, Marner making 11 right now, but he's due up in a year and a half. Nylander making 11.5, Morgan Rielly making 7.5, John Tavares making 11 for another year. That's going to make up 47.5% of the team's salary cap. Almost half the team on 5 players. What you do with the rest, I don't know. Because I was asked, by a family member, what does this mean? What are they going to do with this contract? Well, the money's basically coming from Domi, Bertuzzi, Ilya Samsonov coming off the books. But the problem is you have to fill those contracts. If you put pylons in those positions, you're not going to have a good team. And that's why I said the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think their window's shrinking. Signing these guys long-term, it seems like you're extending it. I don't know if it'll be that way because you need a team to win. You need great individuals. Jonathan Marchessault was fantastic for Vegas. Alex Pietrangelo, sure. But you need a great defense. You need great players around you. Ivan Barbashev for Vegas to help you get over the top. You can have 4 or 5 great players. I don't think 4 or 5 great players are ever going to beat a great team in a playoff series. Hardly ever. Because it is so difficult to overcome it. Because they can come at you while you're putting your third, fourth line on the ice. Their third and fourth line are better than yours. And eventually they wear you down. And God forbid your best players have a bad game or two and you're screwed. So we're going to see what happens this year with the Maple Leafs. Are they going to win? Can they compete for a Stanley Cup? I still believe they're the best team in the Atlantic. I don't have great faith they'll beat Florida in a playoff series. They didn't beat them last year. I still really like the Panthers. I think they're game. I think they're as good or better than Toronto. But do I think Toronto's better than Boston? I do. Do I think Toronto's better than Tampa Bay? Sure. Do I think they're better than Detroit? Sure. And they can be as good or better than any team in the Metropolitan because there's no team in that division that's really. Ugh. You might tell me the Rangers. Spare me with the Rangers. I'm not bought in yet. Carolina, they're still trying to. I mean, every time they take a step forward, they go two steps back. The New Jersey Devils, their entire team's on the injured reserve. They can't get healthy. Islanders, they're what they are. And Philly doesn't quit. Best thing you can say about them. And you have the AARP Penguins. But this year, you're going to try to figure it out. You add free agents. His salary is his salary. Here's what the Maple Leafs have to decide this coming summer. They might win the Cup. They might lose in the first round. I don't know. I'm not Nostradamus. I don't know what's going to happen yet. But here's their decision this summer. And it's really one of two things, in my opinion. Because the way, and especially if they lose, this has to be the choice. I don't even give a fuck if they lose in the conference final. You might, there's progression. Spare me. This summer, they have to make a decision. Are you buying out John Tavares or are you trading Mitch Marner? And to me, it's one of two things. Because if you don't win the Cup, even if you do win the Cup, you have a tough decision. Because like I said, if you keep all those guys on the same team, they are taking up 47% of your salary cap. And now you got to sign Marner in a year and a half. You think he's staying at his number? You think he's staying at 11? After seeing Nylander make 11.5 and Matthews make 13, he's asking for 13 at the minimum. The way they do that Marner family, they want to make money. And hey, you do you. But they're going to want at least 13, if not more, right behind Matthews, his salary. So, with all that being said, if Marner's making more and you keep all those same players, Tavares still at $11 million, you're at over 50% of your salary cap. I thought about trading Mitch Marner last offseason. Clearly, the Leafs didn't think they had a good enough trade. I like Brett Pesce. They clearly did. To me, finding number one defenseman is the hardest thing you can do in the league. It's even harder than finding great centermen. If you could find a defenseman that's available and trade a Mitch Marner for him, I would do it in a heartbeat because the Maple Leafs haven't had a number one defenseman in probably 30 years. And they haven't won in 50. So maybe try something that you haven't really done in 20 years. That's just something to think about. Pontificate the idea. Give it some thought, maybe. But if somebody becomes available, if a team doesn't do as well as they initially thought, if somebody becomes free to you, I would jump on it. This might sound crazy, but the Tampa Bay Lightning might miss the playoffs this year. It's a real possibility. They're not a great team. Their goaltending's not as good as it used to be. They don't have the depth. Nikita Kucherov's playing at an elite level, and Braden Point's fantastic because he always is. But the rest of their team are lacking. Let's say the Tampa Bay Lightning are looking around going, well, we got everybody, but we got to tear this down because we're never going to win with this. They decide to fire John Cooper, and Victor Hedman becomes available. Victor Hedman's in his 30s. You might say he's a little long in the tooth. He's still third in the NHL in points by defenseman behind only Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, which those two guys are none too shabby last time I checked. What if you traded Mitch Marner for Victor Hedman and another piece off the Tampa Bay Lightning roster? Just for instance. It's an in-division trade. Maybe you don't like that, but something to ponder. How about the Detroit Red Wings? You're always trying to get better. You're always trying to figure it out. Moritz Seider, defenseman on their back end. To me, he's a stud. To me, he's going to win a Norris Trophy by the time his career's over. Maybe Detroit won't want to part with him. But All the while, Detroit's been looking for more scoring. They added Alex DeBrincat, and yet they still struggle to score goals. Patrick Kane's been great. What if you added Mitch Marner and Mort Sider came back the other way with another piece from the Detroit Red Wings? There's that possibility. And then there's I call this the grow a pair plan, where the president, Brendan Shanahan, who never speaks and he acts like he doesn't do anything, which is a farce, or Brad Treliving, either one, grow a pair of balls and tell John Tavares, hey, we're buying you out. You can still play, and it's on us for signing you for $11 million to that 7-year deal, and you've been pretty good for us. You haven't been a problem at all. You're a great captain. You've done 100 interviews every year for the last 6 years. You haven't said anything interesting. You haven't put us in any bad spots. You're as boring a person as anybody could be. We love it here in Toronto because that's what we want every player to be. Have no personality, have nothing that makes us want to tune in because our fans are so loyal. Credit to you all, poor bastards. But hey, you make too much money. And it's an NHL rule that we can't restructure contracts unlike the NFL. And we'd love to have you, but we can't pay you 11, bud. And we'd trade you, but I don't think John Tavares is going to waive his no move or no trade, because why get the no move or no trade? You buy him out. 1 year left, and then a buyout won't be a whole lot of money. And you move on. Because you put yourself in the situation where you don't have a choice. To me, it has to be one or the other. And if you keep both, you're not going to win. Because the rest of your team is going to be hindered. And again, this isn't Austin Matthews' fault. This isn't Bill Nylander's fault. This isn't Mitch Marner's fault, Morgan Riley, any of them. You should blame the general manager if you hate the contract, you hate the way this team is set up if you're a Leaf fan. Because they have the option to not sign these guys. What's the pressure point? It's what is it, January 8th. There's a lot of pressure to sign a player January 8th. It has to get done before the All-Star break. Why? Because the All-Star breaks in Toronto and somebody will ask him about it? Who cares? All-Star break. They're probably sending like Jimmy Kimmel's media, or Jimmy Fallon, the guy who does Jimmy Fallon show that they send to the Super Bowl. He's probably the one doing the goddamn interviews. It's not real reporters. Who goes to the covering that? What a shitty beat that would be. Covering the All-Star game in Toronto. Gross. Oh, somebody asked a question. Yeah, I'm not commenting on it right now. How hard is that? But we need to get it done now. Why? Why 8 years? Why 11 and a half? Why give in to all the things he wants? He's going to say, well, I'm not coming back if I don't get this? It wouldn't have changed because the Maple Leafs are not going to trade him this year because they can believe they can win a Stanley Cup and he's their best playoff performer. But now he's signed up for 8 years. No matter how the season goes, no matter how the playoffs go. There's no pressure point. There's nothing. You just want to get it done. Elias Pettersson hasn't got a deal done in Vancouver. Do they seem worried? Are they fretting about it? Vancouver's a passionate market. They care about their hockey just as much as Toronto does. I don't see panic. Was this had to get done? Did it, Tree? Did it really? I love Bill Nylander. He's a great player. Is he worth $11.5 million? No. But that's not his problem. And I'll make this point until the cows come home about contracts. There's no other profession where you are asking employees, which is what players are, to take less money. You don't ask any other profession. If I was asked to take less money at my job, I would not from my other coworkers. I wouldn't, because I want to make the most money because it's my life. The only time it really was asked was during COVID, and it never should have been asked because it wasn't a problem to begin with, but scared-ass Democrats made us think about it. Never had to happen. But that happened. There's no other profession. Entrepreneurs, if you told them you can, and again, I said this at the beginning of the show, you can make 1.5 million this year, you can make 1 million. They're taking 1.5 every time, and there's no person in the world that would take less. It's stupid. It's basic. I was never good at math. I can do that math. It's pretty simple. But in hockey, you got to take less for the rest of the team. No, you don't. Because at the end of the day, when your career's over, you still got money. You can count your money. You can go spend stuff, buy a yacht, whatever the hell you want to do. It's on the general manager, and it's a tough job to build a team. I'm not saying it's not a tough job, but they get paid very well. If every player is taking less, that's kind of easy on their job. Go earn it. There's 32 general manager jobs. They're not supposed to be easy positions. They're not supposed to be, this is everything's going to go my way. No, screw that. You need to find a way to overcome it. A way to overcome this situation was not to give Nylander the contract right now. Or ever, quite frankly. But they did. They could have made the deal harder to do with Matthews. They didn't. They could have given Tavares $9 million a year if he really wanted to play in Toronto. Because that's another great line. I love this line from media people. It's such a trope, but it's great. He really wanted to be it doesn't matter where it is. He really wanted to be a Toronto Maple. He really wanted to be a New York Yankee. Did he now? Did he want to be a Maple Leaf so bad that he was going to turn down $12 million somewhere else? He wanted to be a Toronto Maple Leaf as long as he got the 8-year deals and the $92 million and all that other shit guaranteed. That's what made him want to come back. You love a city. Sure, I'm not denying that he loves the city. Likes taking the subway, gets an ad on the subway, making some cash to whatever that stupid company is. Good commercial. He might love the city, might love it all. But he loves money, and he loves that more than he likes the city or the team or another great trope. It's the only place I could see myself playing. Sure. And New Brunswick's the only place I could see myself living the rest of my life. Did you buy that? Is that a good sell? Do I have you on the rope? It's a lie if you didn't figure it out. I could see myself living other places. Especially if there's more money or better weather or better opportunities or, more money or weather and that location. Then I'd get the hell out of here in about 0.5 of a second. But not yet. But Bill Nylander wanted to be a Leaf, so he's going to stay with the Leafs. And it's amazing. I would tell this to Leaf fans. That's the most optimistic I can be. For right now, this isn't a bad thing. Because this season, it doesn't change a damn thing. If you felt great about this team winning a Stanley Cup this year, it shouldn't have wavered. Because his number's staying the same. His cap number's the same. You still have the draft picks he had going in. And if you felt good, continue to feel good. Hope that this year is the year. Because of how wide open it is. And because of the tough circumstances that will follow the signing of this contract and Matthews' deal and the Marner deal to potentially come. But can the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup this year? Yes. Should they be one of the prohibitive favorites? In my opinion, Yes, but they still need some help, but so does every team. But congrats to Bill Nylander. Been a fan for a while. And hopefully sell some jerseys. Get some more money in his pockets. But I would define this as not an overpay, but not an underpay. It can be both things. You are what the going rate says you are. And the going rate for right wingers when they're available is in and around $11.5 million. Pasternak, Panarin at 11.6, Nylander, Marner at 10.9. But also to Nylander, first half of the season gets you that big of a raise. They were talking $9.5 million beginning of the year. You've made $2 million more. Tree living might have been easier negotiated than Dubas. Sucker. I want to say congratulations to New Brunswick own Luca Cormier for making his NHL debut on Saturday night in Vegas against New York Islanders. His third start of the game. Played 19 minutes. Registered his first career NHL point on a power play goal by Jack Eichel. Looked solid. Vegas was on a bit of a losing streak. They bring Luca in, they get a win. They had some injuries in the back end, so maybe he sticks around for a while. But he handled himself very well. Played extremely good. Looked solid out there. Just an awesome moment for his family and for him. So congratulations, Luca. Also getting to play your first NHL game against a guy like Noah Dobson, who's fourth in the league in defenseman scoring, has been one of the most consistent players all year long. The fact that Barzal was voted in as an all-star in this fake-ass all-star event over Dobson is criminal to me. But hopefully the fans vote in Dobson. But congratulations to Luca and Vegas on getting that win on Saturday night. This week we also saw a big injury. Connor Bedard suffered a fractured jaw after getting a huge hit from Brendan Smith. He's out, sounds like 4 to 8 weeks. Nick Foligno then stepped in and fought Smith, defending Bedard, and he suffered a fractured finger. So Bedard, Foligno, Corey Perry's gone, Taylor Hall's done for the season, Seth Jones is injured, Soderblom, one of their goaltenders, is out right now, Korchinski got banged up last night. So the entire Chicago Blackhawks team, which is one of the worst in the league, is hurt right now. So they're in a tough spot. Feel horrible for Bedard because he's playing great and he's awesome to watch and he's electric every time he's on the ice. I feel worse for Nick Foligno because this seems to happen every time he does something like this. He got injured fighting Corey Perry after he had the John Tavares fake incident in that playoffs, remember, where Tavares fell and Corey Perry was skating and he hit his knee, helmet hit his knee. Foligno had to fight and he didn't last much longer. He was out for the rest of the series. He fights here, fractures a finger. He didn't have to fight. It was a clean hit. It was a perfect hit. Right across the middle. Clean. Didn't touch the chin. Didn't touch the head. Nothing. And Brendan Smith's just a big physical man. And he got Connor Bedard. But we're seeing, this rat culture kind of come back into the game right now. Kevin Bieksa talked about it on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday, where Nick Cousins was called out. He is a dirty player. He is a rat. He throws dirty checks. He hits low. He hits when guys' backs are turned, and he has no regard for player safety. He doesn't fight. So there's no retribution to Nick Cousins unless Eric Goodbranson grabs him and beats the holy hell out of him. But in this case, Nick Foligno fights a Brendan Smith where it was a clean hit, but yet you hurt the star player, so he feels like he has to fight. I feel that's a problem in the game, and I feel that's a problem because you shouldn't have to fight on a clean hit. It's a clean hit by definition. And by asking fighting to go away and asking the game to become less physical, which it has, we're seeing now where players feel so comfortable on the ice that they see a player coming from them and they turn their back at the very last second, and a player is given a penalty for boarding or for checking from behind or charging. And none of these plays are penalties on the offense. If it's completely on the player with the puck's fault for turtling at the last second when they know a hit is coming. They know it's coming, and they still choose to handle it this way, and ends up worse for them, and it makes that player look like he hit a guy from behind. We've seen it in the World Juniors where players are ejected from the game because of this. Not only is it not a 5-minute, it's not a 2-minute penalty, but you watch games, it happens all the time. All the time. Watching Philly and Calgary this week, it happened in one of those games. York turtled at the last second. He sees Majanapani, or it was Blake Coleman, pardon me. Sees Blake Coleman come, is literally the last second he turns his body, and it looks like a check from behind, and Blake Coleman got a 2-minute penalty. The league needs to do something about this. They have all the time, we got to meet about player safety, we got to meet about high sticking, and we need to do more to improve review. Eat shit. I mean, let's talk about this. This is an actual problem. We don't need more video review to get plays wrong, to get more looks on a goalie interference. How about the player going for the puck, giving him some benefit of the doubt, and get that defenseman who turns at the last possible second, having a message to the league, hey, enough of this. That's not a penalty. And that's on you if you get hurt. Because you could have put that with your shoulder and just took the hit. Like that's been happening for years and years. But now you go, he's coming, and you turn your back and it ends up worse for you. And it makes the offensive player look like an asshole when he's just doing his job. Expecting somebody to slow down when they're coming 20 miles an hour is literally impossible. I thought I'd bring that up. It happens so often. If you watch as many games as I do, you'll see it on the East Coast, you'll see it in the Central Time, Mountain Time, Pacific times. That happens everywhere. Marc-Andre Fleury is getting the start tonight for the Minnesota Wild. He will look to get another victory. If he wins tonight, he will have the second most wins in NHL history, surpassing his idol, Patrick Roy, for second on the all-time wins list. Only if he wins tonight, he'll only be trailing Martin Brodeur. Pretty incredible for Fleury. Got to be a Hall of Famer. He's had a great career. Minnesota's so many injuries right now. They're in a tough spot, but Marc-Andre has kept them afloat. They just recalled, I think, the best goaltender outside of the NHL in North America, and Jesper Wallstedt, who's a Swedish goaltender, who I think is going to be a star of the league for many years to come. He's kind of breathing down his neck, but Marc-Andre has the opportunity to do that tonight against another wounded team, the Dallas Stars, who Miro Heiskanen was injured over the weekend, who's so important to that team. Jason Robertson's got a banged up foot. They're without Jake Ottinger, who might return later this week. So 2 wounded clubs as Marc-Andre Fleury chases history later tonight. Plus got Bruins Avalanche tonight, 2 of the best teams in the NHL. That's a fun matchup. Anytime right now watching the Avs and seeing Nathan MacKinnon play is worth your time. But here's a true stunner. If you would have told me that on January 8th, that the Winnipeg Jets had the best record, the most points, and are the best team in the NHL, I would have told you were crazy. Winnipeg Jets only have 9 regulation losses. Tampa has 17, just for reference. Florida has 12. Devils have 15, playoff team last year. Detroit, 16. Avalanche, 12. Nashville, playoff team, 17. Oilers, 15, just to kind of shape the narrative here. The Winnipeg Jets are not a team that's built on superstar talent. They are what I just said. They are a great team. Laurent Brossoit, their backup goaltender, has gone 13 straight starts without allowing 4 goals in a game. It's pretty damn impressive for a backup goaltender. In his last 13 starts, he's 11-2. He's solid every time he gets between the pipes. Kyle Connor has not played for the Winnipeg Jets for 6 weeks, and yet this team has only lost 4 games in that 6-week span. They're getting good goaltending. They're getting production from across the lineup. Mark Scheifele has really improved his game. $40 points in 39 games. That's not crazy, but they get it done. Adam Lowry's been productive. Cole Perfetti, Nick Ehlers is having a big bounce-back season for him. Josh Morrissey hasn't been productive as he was last year, but he's still very good. And for the old heads out there, he's a plus 21. They play a 4-line game, they force turnovers, and they grind you down. And their highest cap hit on their team is $7 million. A little over $7 million, which is Kyle Connor, because the Scheifele and the Hellebuck extensions haven't come in yet. They'll be next year at 8.5. But even at that, $8.5 million will be their highest salary in Winnipeg, and they have the best record in the NHL. They have one of the best goalies. They've had a similar roster for the last number of years, and yet they're playing this well now. You also have to give a lot of credit to Rick Bowness, who called out the Winnipeg Jets on their bullshit last year, called out Blake Wheeler, their former captain. They let him go for nothing, and yet here they are. And Blake's doing fine. He's playing for the New York Rangers. They're only 2 points back of the Winnipeg Jets. But to say Winnipeg are ahead of Colorado with Nathan MacKinnon, who's playing out of his mind, ahead of Dallas, who was in the conference final last year. They're in a division with tough teams at the top. They're playing good teams every night, and yet here they are. Not to mention, I found it interesting because I looked this up today because what else am I going to do? Their next stretch of games here. Home to the Blue Jackets, home to the Blackhawks, home to the Flyers, home to the Islanders, at the Senators. That's their next 5. All very winnable. They'll likely be the favorite in all of them. Then they finish at Bruins, at Maple Leafs, home to the Maple Leafs. Tough final 3, but can they win those games? Absolutely. Can they be competitive down the stretch? Can they win this division? I believe they can, even though they're in a tough spot with Colorado and Dallas, as I just mentioned. But Hellebuck gives them a chance, and their team continues to play the way that they have. They are in it. Simple as that. Credit to Winnipeg. Tonight you get Penguins Flyers, one of the funnest matchups in the NHL still with that rivalry. Canucks are in New York. Two great teams going to battle. Stars, while I said, in Boston, Colorado. 4 games NHL tonight, but all very compelling matchups. Also this evening, before we pivot to the NFL, national championship game in Houston, Washington, Michigan. The last 2 undefeated teams. Washington edged Texas as a betting underdog. Michigan got by Alabama in overtime last Monday in the Rose Bowl. Michigan's been the most hated team all year. Well, they're Michigan to start. People hate Michigan. They were accused of cheating. It's found out they were doing some cheating. Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 6 games. This year was not on the sideline for 6 games. And yet they beat Ohio State for the 3rd straight year. And you beat Alabama. And you beat Penn State. And you beat Alabama, which isn't easy to do. Jim Harbaugh gets Michigan to their first national championship game. He's under scrutiny, but he's deflecting it all. Not to mention, there's so many rumors around Jim Harbaugh that he'll be leaving Michigan at the end of this year to head to the NFL, which he's not been in since he had Colin Kaepernick playing a quarterback for him in the Bay Area. But this could be his last college football game on the sideline tonight, which is something to behold. But Michigan has overcome people hating them, the scrutiny, and gotten to this point. Washington has been a team nobody has really known about all year. They play on the West Coast. They play in the Pac-12, which had his last year this year. Washington will be in the Big Ten with Michigan next year. You think of the Pac-12, it was USC with Caleb Williams, who was the Heisman Trophy winner. You have Oregon with Bo Nix, the transfer. UCLA, Chip Kelly still hanging around. But Washington had Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix Jr., who's another transfer quarterback from the University of Indiana. And in 2 seasons, he's thrown 60 touchdown passes and has fewer than 15 interceptions. He's got 3 excellent receivers in Odunze, Polk, and McMillan. He throws as good a deep ball as anybody in college football, maybe even in the NFL. He was the runner-up to the Heisman Trophy. I think he should have won it, but that's just me. Washington won 10 games this year by fewer than 10 points. In a lot of close games, and they found a way to win them all, including beating USC, including beating Texas in that close game, including beating, Oregon twice, Arizona, who had a great season in their own right, including a bowl win against Oklahoma. Washington's had to overcome a lot. Looking at this game, up front, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., both guys will be in the NFL next year, in my opinion. I don't know if J.J. McCarthy will be starting, but I think both guys will declare for the NFL draft after tonight, and both guys will be drafted this spring. But I give the advantage at the quarterback position to Michael Penix Jr. because I just think he's awesome. JJ's good. I think he's more of a system quarterback. He does have some athleticism. But if you confuse him, you don't scheme the game well, I don't think he can make as many plays happen as Michael Penix Jr. can. So advantage quarterback to the University of Washington. Offensive line, I have to give to Michigan. Michigan's without one of their top offensive linemen who broke his leg earlier in the year. But the way they create holes for Blake Corum, their running back, who's one of the best running backs in the nation, fifth-year senior. He's got the most rushing touchdowns in Michigan history. He's got the most rushing touchdowns in a single season in Michigan history, 22. They can create holes, play action passes to guys like Roman Wilson and Colston Loveland, the tight end. Offensive line, I'm giving it to Michigan. Skill position, I'm going to edge it out to Washington because of the receivers that I talked about. They're just so elite. Roman Wilson's good, so's Loveland, but they're not on that level. Defensive line, I have to give it to Michigan. They had the most pressures in college football this year. They had 7 sacks playing Alabama last week. And Penix does like to hold the ball and throw the ball down the field. They're going to have to generate plays quickly because that Michigan front will get to the quarterback and they will make their life a living hell on Michael Penix. So advantage, Michigan. To me, having a great offensive line, having a great defensive line is so valuable. And it's more valuable than having great wide receivers, quite frankly. Michigan's a 4.5-point favorite going into the game tonight. That was this morning, but I'm just going to double check it real quick because it is close to game time. It's now up to 5.5 on FanDuel for Michigan. Clearly, money's coming on the Michigan Wolverines to win tonight. And I'm with the books. I just think that defensive line is going to be too good for Washington. I think Washington will hang in there, but I could see a late touchdown by Michigan to kind of put them up. Michigan winning this game by 10 to 12 points. Getting that national championship. Harbaugh can leave on top, leave to go back to the NFL and try to do what his brother's already done, and that's win a Super Bowl. Looking at tonight, I like Michigan minus 5.5. I like Blake Corum anytime touchdown on the ground. I like J.J. McCarthy over 199.5 yards passing. I think he'll get over that tonight. And I like Roman Wilson over 48.5 receiving yards tonight. So that's Michigan money line. Blake Corum anytime touchdown. J.J. McCarthy over 199.5 yards passing. And Roman Wilson over 48.5 yards receiving. That's a little parlay ski tonight to take a look at for the national championship. Last college football game of the year. I do think this is Jim Harbaugh's last game at Michigan, win or lose. I think he's going to go back to NFL. We're going to talk firings tomorrow, where the Carolina job is open. I think they have interest in him there. I know they have interest in him in Vegas. I think the Chargers really want Jim Harbaugh. I think he's going to have his pick of the litter unless Belichick becomes available and he gets fired over the next couple days. But even so, I think some teams would prefer Jim Harbaugh over Bill Belichick because I just think he's an easier guy to deal with. He's not going to ask to be the GM and the coach, which Bill might. And there's no way that's happening if I'm a team after watching what he's done to the Patriots over the last 2-3 years and how they've really become an embarrassment. But there will be too much interest in Jim Harbaugh for him to stay. He could have signed an extension at Michigan already. Got the money he feels he deserves. He took a pay cut the last couple of years because they're going to fire him. It's the only reason he did it. During the pandemic. Eye roll. And he wanted a new deal with the money he, gave back and some because of what he's accomplished at Michigan. I just think if he wins tonight, what are you going back for? What are you chasing? Been to a Super Bowl, but you didn't win it. And going back to NFL is a risk because we see what happens with Sean Payton in year one. It doesn't always go perfect. you have a horrible relationship with your quarterback and you kind of look like an asshole towards the end of the year. But I think Jim can fit in well. He can lead a group of men for sure. Seen him do it before. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm going to the Chargers. If I have my choice. Because the Chargers have Justin Herbert. They don't have a GM yet, so they need to hire a GM and a head coach this offseason. But if I'm the Chargers, you've had enough bad coaches. Brandon Staley's been kicking around enough. Go hire an actual guy who knows what the hell he's doing. A leader, an executive, if you will. If you're Jim, you go there. You already have Justin Herbert, who's a franchise quarterback. You have some salary cap room with Keenan Allen potentially walking out the door. Austin Eckler leaving the team. You're going to have a high draft pick. The Chargers have it here. Chargers have the 5th pick in the draft. That could be a wide receiver. It could be new offensive, whatever you want. I'm sure he'll get some say on what you bring in. But looking around, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., who might not be there at 5. But Odunze's pretty damn good. And you got some good receivers in college football, for sure, that can help the team. Or you go offense, or a great pass rusher that could be phenomenal too. But I'd look at the chart. I think the Raiders is interesting. But the Raiders don't have a quarterback. And do you draft one? Because the Raiders are outside the top 8 in draft picks. So they're farther down, and they don't got a quarterback. So it makes it a little more complicated because you go, okay, well, we could sign a free agent like a Kirk Cousins, potentially to bring in. But how good's he going to be? How healthy is he going to be? Are we going to take a kid in the draft, which doesn't always work out? And it is a great quarterback class. But are you going to hit on the guy? Is he going to be a winner? Raiders have stuck with the veteran quarterback market for a number of years. Derek Carr forever. Then they go to Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe it's time to dip their toe in and trade up. Trade for Justin Fields, potentially, if he's going to leave Chicago. Different things to think about. But I got Michigan winning the national championship game tonight in a very competitive game in Houston. The NFL regular season is over. And that's sad. It is. I'm not happy about that. But the playoffs are here, and those are great. So, yin and yang. What an interesting final weekend it was, because you had a mixture of important and just completely irrelevant games. You had Jeff Driscoll playing Jake Browning in a football game this weekend, where the Bengals smoked the Browns. You had a football game where Carson Wentz was a quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams playing against Sam Darnold, a former number 2 overall and a former number 3 overall picks in an NFL draft. Crazy stuff. Which Carson Wentz eventually won. You had a snow bowl in New England between the Jets and the Patriots that was just a complete dreadful football game. Raiders-Broncos that I watched 0 seconds of, that I believe the Raiders won. Those all happened. Then you also had Houston and Indianapolis. That meant everything for 2 teams that didn't see themselves in a playoff spot at the beginning of the year. You had Jacksonville, all they had to do was win a game against the Tennessee Titans, and they didn't. And here's kind of where we are. postseason matchups are as follow. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Washington football team yesterday, and they locked in the second seed in the NFC. It's the first time Dallas has been a number 1 or number 2 seed in the postseason since 2016 when Dak Prescott was a rookie. They lost in divisional round that year to Aaron Rodgers and an incredible run from Green Bay. That was the last time they were a number 1 or number 2 seed. That means Dallas is guaranteed to have 2 home playoff games, which is pretty incredible for them. So kudos to Dallas. CeeDee Lamb is playing out of his mind. Dak is playing like the best quarterback in the NFC. I wouldn't want to play Dallas. And quite frankly, if all you got to do is get past San Francisco, Dallas is a scary football team. They don't lose at home. I don't see a team before the NFC Championship game that's going to beat Dallas. There's my thought off the top. Just seeing them as number 2 playoff seed, they're going to be playing the Green Bay Packers this coming weekend on Fox on Sunday. Green Bay's a good team. Great story. Jordan Love, better numbers in his rookie season than Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers. Makes the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers plays 4 snaps. And I love Aaron, but really the most meaningful thing he did all year was call out Jimmy Kimmel on fabricated charges. So, tough break for him. Well, Green Bay is a great story. They're up and coming. Matt LaFleur makes the playoffs again without Aaron Rodgers. Dallas is going to be a big favorite in that game. Their passing attack, they ran the ball this weekend. If they don't turn the ball over, I think Dallas will get by them. But Jordan Love's been playing fantastic. The way he played yesterday against the Bears, he had a bad fumble, but he didn't dwell on it. He rebounded, made some big throws. I love him and Jaden Reed's connection, the rookie out of Michigan State. They don't even have all the wide receivers. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, not completely healthy. Missing Musgrave, the tight end. They got 2 good running backs. It's not an easy game for the Cowboys. But the way the Cowboys look right now, their defense, the pass rush getting home, the way Dak Prescott's playing, I think Dak should be a finalist for the MVP. I don't think he should win it, but if he comes in second, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I assume they'll give it to Brock Purdy, but if the 3 nominees are Brock Purdy, Lamar, and Dak, I think those would be 3 worthy nominees. Phenomenal all year. After having 15 interceptions last season, was regarded as one of the worst quarterbacks in the league just based on numbers. He comes back this year and goes 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions for the Cowboys. Only 2 fumbles lost. Completed 69.5% of his passes, which is second in the NFL behind only Tua Tagovailoa. 4,500 yards passing, which leads the league. And he goes and wins the NFC East. Started every game, healthy. Another thing to give him credit for. CeeDee Lamb also had his breakout year. 1,750 yards, 135 catches, 12 touchdowns. Those 2 guys are humming. Jake Ferguson, the tight end. The Cowboys are a scary group. They always find a way to lose. I don't think they're going to this year. Maybe against Green Bay. But again, maybe against San Fran, but I don't know if San Fran's going to be there. Detroit's the 3rd seed. I had this thought yet. I'm watching a bit of that Detroit-Minnesota game. I get Dan Campbell wants to play his starters. But the only way that you get the 2 seed is if Dallas and Philly lose. So if they both lose, then you get the 2 seed and you win. That's the optimal way. Was Dallas really going to lose to the Washington football team, who stink, who were buying tickets to Expedia 3 weeks ago? Ron Rivera knew he was getting fired weeks ago. That wasn't going to happen. They beat them by 30. And I'm just thinking, why is Jared Goff in the game in the fourth quarter? Why is he playing at all? I get Dan Campbell plays his stars. So, okay, well, I don't agree with that philosophy. I rest my players, and case in point, Sam Laporta, who I'm a big fan of. I know my mother's a big fan of him too. Sam Laporta, who had one of the best seasons by a rookie tight end ever. 890 yards receiving, 86 catches, 10 touchdowns, no fumbles, only 5 drops. Wow, that's a pretty damn good season. Second quarter, he catches a ball, and it's behind him, and his knee buckles. Luckily, it was not a torn ACL, which is what it looked like, but it sounds like he's not going to be available for this week's game. He might not be available till possibly the Super Bowl. Why? They won the game by 10 points. Jared Goff played every snap. St. Brown had 7 catches for $144. I just didn't understand the philosophy. I didn't understand the reasoning. You know you're going to be the 3rd seed. You're going to get a home playoff game, and that's who you are. Teddy Bridgewater announced middle of the season it's going to be his last year. He's going to retire and become a high school football coach. Why not give him some snaps in his farewell game? He's not playing in the playoffs. It's the last game of the regular season. Let him play. But you have to put Sam Laporta out there. Now he's going to miss a playoff game next weekend. It's a big deal because he's one of the most important players. He blocks. He can catch anything. He's so versatile. And the Lions have won the division. They're going to the playoffs for the first time in forever. And they're going to play the Los Angeles Rams, which is my personal favorite playoff matchup of any coming up. This is Detroit, who once had Matthew Stafford. They traded Stafford to the Rams. Jared Goff comes back, and Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. Stafford has not played in Detroit since. His first time back at Ford Field will be in a playoff game for the Rams. The revenge game on both sides. Detroit, Goff versus Stafford. 2 number 1 overall picks trying to validate themselves. So much pressure on Detroit to win this game as a home team. The Rams, Puka Nacua, rookie receiving record for receiving yards and touchdowns and catches. He's done it all. Cooper Kupp still out there. Aaron Donald. Your veterans and a bunch of young guys. The Rams sat everybody yesterday, still won a game. They didn't have any injuries because Kyren Williams didn't play, Stafford didn't play, Aaron Donald didn't play, Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua played 3 snaps, got the record, and Sean McVay said, get him the hell out of the game. They did it correctly. Dan Campbell did not, in my opinion. And I like Detroit. Good team. Great story. They should be the 2 seed. They beat Dallas 2 weeks ago, but Brad Allen and his officiating crew fucked it up. So I feel bad for Detroit. And not to mention, I'd rather be playing Green Bay than playing the Rams. Because the Rams would scare me. The Rams can score with anybody. Stafford, when he has time in the pocket, he's as accurate and as deadly as any quarterback in the league. We'll get more into the line as we progress through the week. But the Rams are a scary team, and it's going to be tough for the Lions to win this game. Troy would be the favorite for sure. But will they win the game? We'll talk about that later. For the third straight year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the NFC South. Baker Mayfield finished 30 touchdowns, hit a bonus for making the playoffs, a $1 million incentive, winning the division. He had a great season. The Bucs win a bad division, beating Carolina 9-0 in an ugly game. But they won it. That's all that matters. Todd Bowles, 2 seasons, 2 division titles, 2 playoff appearances. And Tampa will be welcoming in the Philadelphia Eagles, who might be the biggest fall from grace team in the NFL. At one point this season, the Philadelphia Eagles were 8-1. They were the best team in the NFL. They had beaten the Cowboys. They had beaten the Bills. They were beating everybody. But then they had a game against the 49ers where they got killed. And they lost a close game to the Vikings. And it snowballed from there where the Giants had a game where they covered the number. The Arizona Cardinals go into Philly and beat them. And yesterday was a complete embarrassment where the New York Giants beat the Eagles by 17 points. Eagles are 1-5 to end the season. And Jalen Hurts left the game in the first half with a fractured finger. But his season's been dreadful. 15 interceptions. He's had the Dak season. 15 interceptions. 5 lost fumbles. Didn't throw for 4,000 yards passing. Had 15 rushing touchdowns. But this defense cannot sack the quarterback. Their front that's built, they took them all from Georgia. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, they can't get to the quarterback. They're not putting pressure. Their secondary gives up passing yards to everybody. Saquon Barkley was running around the whole team. Yes, so was Darren Waller for the Giants. And Philly just looks like a lost team. They look like they don't have any hope. Nowhere to go. A team that was in the Super Bowl last year, a team that was 8-1, will be a road team the entirety of the postseason, which is something else. It's hard to look at Philly and see any sort of hope. Look like a wounded animal. They don't have anybody to help stitch them up. Nowhere to go. Hurt quarterback. A.J. Brown, their best wide receiver, left the game. Devontae Smith has a foot fracture. Jason Kelce could be his last game this coming weekend. He might retire. Nick Sirianni's suddenly on the hot seat in Philly after what was great for him the first, couple of years of his tenure. Everybody loved him. But now the team's a joke, and where do you go from here? They need to beat Tampa Bay. I don't think they're going to get any farther than that, but they need to find a way to beat Tampa Bay and show something. Seeing the 49ers or seeing Dallas is not what they're looking forward to. They don't want that moving forward. But it might happen. That's the NFC. But I think 2 of those home teams are very much in tough this coming weekend. AFC, it could have been a very interesting day because you had the Jaguars needed to win. Steelers had won on Saturday against the Ravens. Mason Rudolph, another big game. TJ Watt leaves with an MCL sprain. He's going to be out 2 weeks. So he's not going to be playing this weekend. but it made the Bills and Dolphins game less interesting. It wasn't a win in your in scenario. It was just whatever happens in this game. If the Dolphins win, they're the 2 seed. They rematch with the Bills next weekend at Hard Rock. If the Bills win, they're the 2 seed. They play the Steelers. If there's a tie, Dolphins win the division. They play the Steelers. Well, Josh Allen tried to give the Dolphins the win. He had 3 turnovers, 2 awful interceptions into the end zone. Christian Wilkins, that mammoth of a man, ripped the ball from under his arm. And yet the Dolphins can only put up 14 points. Melvin Ingram had a sack. He's been on his couch all season long. They called him in because they've lost Bradley Chubb. They lost Jalen Phillips. They lost Andrew Van Ginkel last night. Xavier Howard did not play. Javon Holland's playing injured. And you can only put up 14 points. Last night it was the offense. Tua Tagovailoa played horrible last night. Missed every downfield throw. Threw 2 interceptions himself. They had opportunities in that game and they couldn't let it happen. They gave a punt return for a touchdown. The Miami Dolphins are the Miami Dolphins. They are frauds. They're going to be playing the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend and they're going to lose. Newsflash. The weather for that game is going to be horrible. Sounds like minus 590, minus 6 degrees Celsius. Might be snowing, heavy winds in Kansas City. Tyreek Hill's used to it, but these Miami Dolphins aren't. Tua doesn't like playing in that weather. He didn't play in the postseason game last year in Buffalo. So a promising season's going to end the exact same way it did last year, losing to a team on the road. And it'd be interesting to see what the Dolphins think of their season because they didn't get any better. They went from the 7th seed last year to the 6th seed this year. You moved up 1 spot. But you still didn't win the division. You had a lead from week 10 on, and the Bills still got it. To the Bills' credit, they were dead to rights, and they got the 2nd seed in the AFC, and they'll have two home playoff games. Josh Allen was rumored for the MVP all year. I don't get that. Still, it's craziness. He was dreadful last night. He made a couple huge runs when he had to. But all the bad play he's had and what they've been through and all that crap, they are a threatening team. Because Baltimore's great, but I still think Buffalo, they're more threatening than Kansas City. They're more, scary than Houston. And here's how I look at Buffalo. I think Kansas City will beat Miami. Houston and Cleveland is the 4-5 matchup, which is so interesting. Because Houston-Indy was great Saturday night. C.J. Stroud, big moment, found a way to win that game, win a division title in his rookie season, also in DeMeco Ryans' rookie season as a head coach. Nico Collins, almost 200 yards receiving. But they got to play the Cleveland Browns with Kevin Stefanski, who will likely win Coach of the Year. Joe Flacco, who might win Comeback Player of the Year. And I think I've seen this. I think Cleveland is the betting favorite as the road team right now, which is rare to see. But I don't want to play Cleveland. I'd rather play Kansas City in a playoff game than the Cleveland Browns. That might sound crazy, but I want no parts of Cleveland. Because they have that aura about them. They got that physical defense. They can play anywhere. Their defense travels. Kansas City's offense is terrible. Joe Flacco can throw the ball down the field to Amari Cooper. That I know. And I think there's a decent chance we get a throwback Super Bowl of the 90s with the Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills. It's not a prediction yet, but that's what I'm thinking. 2 number 2 seeds get to the Super Bowl because I think the Browns could really hurt Baltimore. I just think the Rams could be a thorn in the side of the San Francisco 49ers. 2 lower seeds making runs but don't get to the Super Bowl. That's how I'm kind of looking at this situation. because I wouldn't want to deal with the Rams, and I wouldn't want to deal with the Cleveland Browns. If you're Baltimore, you are rooting hard for Miami to beat Kansas City this weekend, which they won't. I don't see Pittsburgh even giving Buffalo a hard time because TJ Watt's not going to be in the game. As much as I respect Mike Tomlin, know him, there's just not enough there to make me love the Steelers on the road in Buffalo. It's a tall task. It's an incredible story that Pittsburgh got to the playoffs based on what was happening earlier in the year, where Mike Tomlin was on the hot seat from people, including myself. I don't think he's going anywhere. But the fact that he got to the postseason and had a 10-7 record, it's pretty incredible. Those 6 playoff games are next weekend. It goes Saturday, 5:30, Houston, Cleveland. 9 o'clock, Miami at Kansas City. Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. 5:30, Dallas, Green Bay. The 9 o'clock game, Rams at Detroit. And then Monday Night Football, last of the wild card weekend, Philadelphia in Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. So those getting games next weekend. San Francisco and Baltimore are on bye weeks, so they'll be awaiting their future opponents. Tomorrow we're going to get more into the firings today across the NFL, the draft order. A number of things have happened in baseball, so I want to get that tomorrow. There's some UFC announcements from Dana White last night that I want to talk about. So that will come tomorrow on the podcast. But the season's over. It sucks. Sucks that the NFL season's coming to a close. Looking at teams that missed the playoffs, I think the biggest disappointment, you got to look at the Jets. Obviously, even Aaron Rodgers was injured, but still. The Jaguars lost to the Titans. Trevor Lawrence isn't a bust, but he isn't a great quarterback. He's just he's a Jag. He's just a guy. He misses easy throws, hangs around the pocket, takes big hits, threw 2 interceptions yesterday. And that Jacksonville defense had no answer for the rushing attack. Derrick Henry in his last game as Tennessee Titan ran for $153 for 8.1 yards a carry. On 19 for $153. Tajay Spears ran 3 times for 25. That's 8.3 yards a clip. Something else by the Titans. And Mike Vrabel, who wants to screw it up every time he can. He might not even remain the Titans coach, but he wanted to win that game. And I think he'd love to take that Patriots job if Belichick was fired. If that happens, I wouldn't be shocked if Vrabel gets the job. But the Jaguars have to figure some things out, what they want to do moving forward. Saints beat the Falcons. Saints are in a weird position where they missed by a game. You could bring back the same head coach, same quarterback, but are you good enough? No. And you're in a weird spot as a team. And Derek Carr finished the season with 4 touchdowns yesterday and only 6 incompletions. And there's drama at the end where they ran in a touchdown late. And the Falcons were pissed, and they had no right to be mad because they were a joke all year, the Falcons, and bitching and complaining. How about stop them the whole game? That would be my answer. Good for Jameis Winston. Never got on the field, gets a rushing touchdown. Good for him. Screw the Falcons. And Arthur Smith was fired last night anyway, so clearly Arthur Blank was not siding with his head coach on that argument because he showed him the door. But a lot of decisions to be made. Falcons need a new head coach. Will the Patriots need a new head coach? Did the Jets make a move? Panthers need a new head coach. We know that. What are the Seahawks going to do? I don't see them firing Pete Carroll, but it's a season where you go 9-8. You miss the playoffs. Geno Smith come back? Do you draft a quarterback? What did the Bears do? They have the number 1 pick again. Should they keep Justin Fields? I already said I think he gets traded to the Falcons. Giants fired their defensive coordinator, their offensive line coach, and their special teams coach today. So Daboll hanging around, but they're making some changes. They go 6-11. Raiders, do they keep Antonio Pierce? Players seem to love him. They go 8-9 on the season alongside the Broncos. Broncos looking for a new quarterback. Raiders looking for a new quarterback. Chargers need a new head coach. Commanders need a new head coach. So lots of things that need to happen. Lots of things that need to be decided over the next little while. I realize I probably don't sound the best tonight, and I apologize for that. Hopefully get better tomorrow and as the week goes on. Again, I don't feel that bad, just I sound nasally and not that great. So I apologize if I didn't sound great tonight, or I might just sound bad all the time if you hate my takes, so what's the difference? But enjoy the national championship game tonight. We'll get into the firings across the NFL today and last night, and we'll react to them all. But until then, take care, enjoy the action. I'm Noah Warren, and this is To The Point.